And welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, very happy to have right off the floor of the House, Representative Melanie Stansbury, a Democrat representing New Mexico's 1st District, serves on the House Committee on Natural Resources, House Committee on Oversight. Representative, nice to see you, my friend. How's everything?
It is a day. It's
Explain.
just, yeah.
Sorry. No, explain to us, like, you literally just walked off the floor of the
Mhm.
House because there was a vote on a rules package, which is a big thing about rules, I guess, for debating certain issues, stuff like that. But buried in it, they wanted to ban proxy voting, but there was a Republican who wanted to allow proxy voting for especially moms who can vote from home. I guess that was the argument. And it looks like 9 Republicans joined with Democrats to stop the rules package. So is it just specific to that issue, or is there something bigger going on, perhaps, with the House leadership losing control of their caucus? That's really my curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the real question here. And just to kind of distill it a little more simply, basically, what just happened on the floor of the United States Congress is that the Speaker of the House decided to cancel votes for the entire rest of the week. So he pulled the plug on Congress because 9 of his members voted against the majority in order to try to make sure that new moms could vote remotely and not endanger their children by coming into the Capitol to vote, because we have a couple of new moms right now. It is a bipartisan discharge petition, but the bigger picture here is that the way the House rules work is that you need 218 members to pass anything on the floor, and we have a process by which you can petition to bring a bill to the floor if you can get 218 signatures, because that demonstrates that you can pass it.
Right.
And so this has always been the rule. It's been there forever. And basically, for the last couple of weeks, the speaker has been trying to buy off votes, so that his members won't try to move this petition. And today they held the line, the Republican sponsor and supporters of this bill, and the speaker pulled the plug. And I think that, one, I do think that he genuinely hates proxy voting. And I do think this should make us ask questions about, are Republicans actually the party of family values if they're not going to let
No.
newborn moms vote remotely? They'd rather endanger infants to travel with their moms. But then there's this other question of, is this, does Johnson view this as a direct affront to his complete control over the caucus? And I think that's the bigger issue.
Yeah, I just saw the clip where Speaker Johnson leaves the chamber and talks to the media and says, disappointing. We can't have any further action on the floor this week. Like, that's it, kids. We're turning the car around. That's what I told you to stop yelling and stop hitting your sister or your brother or whatever. And now, since you're all children, no more votes. Like, is that a penalty? Am I missing something? I'd rather they not vote ever again, these Republicans. But so this is a win for us. So you're not going to vote again. So as a practical matter, well, you're still going to have committee hearings, right? You're still going to do that. Just not going to vote on any. Was there anything big pending this week?
I mean, I don't know, to be honest. It's very rare for a majority to lose a rules vote on the floor. I mean, the kind
Oh,
of wisdom of this place and the convention of this place is you always vote with the rule. But if you recall, even 2 years ago, before Speaker Johnson became the speaker, that was actually one of the first times that Republicans voted against their own rule. Then they took out McCarthy. Then we started seeing the Freedom Caucus voting against rules on a regular basis. And now basically the speaker saying, fine, if you're going to vote against the rule, I'll just shut the whole dang thing down. But they're the majority. They control the floor. So I don't understand what kind of penalty this is. So yeah, it's very unclear if they're going to send us home and what this means. But I think what
mm,
it demonstrates is that the speaker's lost control of his caucus.
that's good. And it would be like your parents, like, that's it. No school for you for the rest of the week. You've all been bad. Now go to your room and play video games and eat food. That's it. So let's change gears for a second. You were back in New Mexico. I saw images on social media talking to voters, which I'm always the most intrigued with, back in districts. What are voters saying? Because I know what the corporate media is saying. What are
Mm-hmm.
voters saying to you? Like, what are the issues they're talking about to you?
Well, I think, like probably the vast majority of my colleagues who are still having town halls, I had the largest town halls I've ever had. And I was primarily over the last couple of weeks in the rural parts of my district. And I was in towns where, in the past, when we've had events, we're feeling fortunate if a couple of dozen people show up. And over the last couple of weeks, hundreds and hundreds of people are showing up all
Mm.
across, including in very conservative and very rural communities. And, the folks who showed up to my town halls were from all different sides of the ideological spectrum. And I would say the concerns are the same. People are really worried about what's going on. And I think, in particular, because of the mass firings that have been happening over the last couple of weeks and the shutting down of these critical agencies like Department of Education, they just don't understand how this is possible and what we're doing to fight back. I think people have a lot of questions because we are not only a country that is a democracy, but a country of laws. How the president and Elon Musk and all these people can be breaking the law every day, but not being held to account. And so I think it's a combination of people feeling deeply worried about the state of our country, about the lawlessness that's happening, and then people who are directly impacted. Thousands of New Mexicans have either had a loved one or themselves get fired.
Wow.
They've had funding frozen, and people are really, really, really frightened that Social Security is going to get cut. I mean, I can't tell you the number of people just this weekend who were literally crying in my arms, worried that they're going to lose everything. So, yeah.
And you want to comfort them and make them feel like everything's going to be okay, but you don't want to lead them down the primrose path. Donald Trump and Elon Musk are coming for Social Security, not through an act of Congress, through these lies that there's 20 million dead people on it. They keep saying it. And now they're going to do a new code system, a new software system for it. And they're going to purge millions of people. And then they've gutted Social Security Administration. So if you call to get back on or to prove you're not 200 years old, there's nobody there. So people have to be concerned. It's a lifeline. My mom, Social Security was her only form of income for years, for the last few years of her life. So it's concerning. I don't want to scare people, but I want the same way I want people to be aware of what they're doing. They're definitely coming for it. It's a question, do they purge 500,000 or 10 million people? And then how do we get people back on who deserve to be on, who've paid all their life in their programs? What about the impact of tariffs? Tomorrow, Donald Trump he called it Liberation Day, which I believe now that means he's liberating us from our money through massive taxes. That's what it is, because I've never seen someone so gleeful to raise taxes by 20 to 25% on all Americans in my life. This is the biggest tax increase in the history of our nation done in one day. What if the people are concerned about that and the uncertainty on the economy that's going to impact?
Oh, yeah. So tariffs is one of the biggest things that folks have asked me everywhere I've been, all across my communities, because the American people are smart and they understand that if you put tariffs on imported goods, and that we're going to have an increase in prices. And if you go to the grocery store right now, our food is already astronomically expensive. Housing is astronomically expensive. If you're trying to build anything, it's already difficult to get supplies. They're astronomically expensive. And then, Trump has frozen all this funding for manufacturing that the Biden administration passed through the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act. And so everything from microchip processing to big infrastructure projects are on hold because Trump has frozen all of that. And now they're talking about putting tariffs on the materials that you need to do construction projects. And so, the people are saying it's going to disrupt the markets. Absolutely, it's going to disrupt the markets, but it's going to disrupt the everyday lives of those people who are on fixed incomes. And thank you for sharing about your mom, my mom, the same. There are literally millions of Americans out there whose Social Security is the only cash income that is between them and being able to have dinner and have a roof over their head. And when you start adding in tariffs and cutting fixed incomes and cutting Medicaid and Medicare and food assistance and housing, real people are going to suffer in this country. And I think that the American people are just so racked with worry right now. They don't know what to do. And that's why it's so important that leaders stand up and push back and fight back right now.
And I'm glad that you're talking about how hundreds are coming out to your events that used to be 24. And,
Mhm.
Social Security, when it was championed by FDR, he talked point blank about our seniors should have dignity as they get older. But the poverty rate among seniors at the time, and it was also in the Great Depression, was horribly high. They were in poorhouses, as they were called then. They were living on the streets in a lot of cases. And this was to give them dignity and show that what kind of nation
Mhm.
we are. And these guys want to gut that. They would come for Medicare if they could. I just think politically, they understand that's really difficult to touch. And Medicaid, they have no problem gutting it. Department of Education, it really seems like a second revolution. Like they're trying to reimagine this nation on every level,
Oh yeah,
including attacking dissent on ways I've never seen in my life.
absolutely. And the poverty level for seniors is still one of the highest of any population. And in a place like New Mexico, the population overall in New Mexico, 1 in 5 New Mexicans are on food assistance, on SNAP, and some sort of financial assistance. And for seniors, we have one of the highest food insecurity rates in the country. So if you start talking about cutting all these programs, we are hearkening back to a time before that safety net existed. And it's there so that people can live with dignity and finish out their days and love on their grandchildren. And I think what they're doing is not only wrong, it's cruel, and it doesn't even make sense.
It's to them, it makes sense. To the rest of it
Mhm.
doesn't. And I'm telling Representative Melanie Stansbury. So, Representative, what's your reaction? We've seen, and I think you were involved with some members, but in the objecting to what was going on. You have the ICE of the Trump regime, as I call it, it's not an administration, uh, abducting and trying to deport people for co-writing an op-ed that was calling for Tufts University to sever ties from Israel due to Gaza. No violence, nothing else. That's the only thing they did. Still have Mahmoud Khalil, a green card holder, in a prison right now in a detainment center for weeks. And I think they're just getting warmed up. And I want people to understand it doesn't end with a student who says something the
Mhm.
regime doesn't like. It begins with students that the regime doesn't like and extends to all of us. That's where I think this is going. And what's your take on it?
There's so many things that the Trump administration is doing right now that are absolutely bone chilling in terms of trying to stifle dissent. And the idea that they are abducting Americans and green card holders for exercising their free speech without violating laws is a violation of the Constitution. It's the violation of fundamental human and due process rights. And it shows the ways in which the Trump administration not only has total disregard for the law, but is willing to go to these lengths to try to silence those who it disagrees with. And I also think it shows the way, and we see this in every area, whether it's the DEI initiatives, it's the anti climate stuff, it's the anti judicial stuff, and the attacks on the judges, the tax on corporations. They are trying to chill dissent. And the way that they chill dissent is by doing shocking things
Mm-hmm.
that break the law, that scare people. And we see it's their MO. And that is exactly how autocrats and authoritarians operate. And it is bone chilling. And so myself and hundreds of members of Congress are speaking out. We're taking action and working to make sure that they're stopped in the courts,
Mm-hmm.
that what limited tools we have in Congress, we stop them. But we also need the American people to continue to speak up and speak out, because that's how we preserve our democracy.
And I can tell you firsthand, because I have many friends who are immigrants, it is having an impact.
It
And
is.
they've told
Yeah.
me that, they don't want to post anything on Instagram or Facebook about what's going on in Gaza because it could impact them. I know comedians who are here on green cards. They're afraid to do jokes about Donald Trump because they figure that's what's going to happen next. It goes from Gaza policy to anything the regime doesn't approve of. And they have every reason to be afraid. And I've also read articles now, just reading Media Matters, that threats to denaturalize people. And that's a challenge in the courts, but they'll try it. This regime will definitely try that. I tell people it's very hard to take. I'm born here. For us born here, there's really no system to take our citizenship away. They can just put you in jail for something else. But for naturalized citizens, there is. So you noted last week that GOP is helping Elon Musk and his friends loot the federal government. And
Mhm.
while they're causing pain and anxiety to so many fellow Americans, especially older Americans and veterans, especially, here is Elon Musk on the verge of making billions of dollars more from our
Mhm.
government while cutting their programs. What can you share that's troubled you about this?
Well, I mean, I think there's so much about Elon Musk that is disturbing. I mean, how about the fact that today in Wisconsin, he's trying to buy a judicial race? I mean, no one has ever even seen this much money ever spent on a judicial race anywhere in the United States ever. And the fact that you've got this private billionaire giving away $1 million checks on this stage to buy a judicial race in a state he doesn't live in, and which will hear court cases that are currently on appeal
Mhm.
in that state that affect his private business is so. I mean, this is what people feared when the Citizens United case was handed down, right? Was that billionaires would try to buy our elections. And that is exactly what Elon Musk is doing. He's doing it now with this judicial race. He did it with Donald Trump. And he's clearly bought his way into the Oval Office and bought his way into creating this Doge entity. Now, let's say you give him the greatest benefit of the doubt that there is some intent at the end of the day to try to improve internal government systems. I don't think there's a human on the face of the planet that doesn't think the federal government needs to be more efficient, more modern, use technology more effectively. We're all for that. But that's not what he's doing. In fact, he can't even provide receipts that add up that show that he's had real savings. What he's done is dismantled these programs. He's canceled contracts of things that he doesn't ideologically agree with. He shut down agencies that Project 2025 and Trump wanted him to. And they fired illegally all of these federal employees, tens of thousands of them. And then they're going to claim that as savings. And he's saying that he's going to save $1 trillion for the federal government. First of all, my friend, he is not even an elected official. All of those so-called savings are all caught up in the courts because they were illegal. He's not an elected official. And unless it goes through Congress, it's not actually counted in the ledger of the United States government. And while he's doing that, he's giving himself private contracts to
Mhm.
replace those services, including the FAA communications contract. They're saying he's going to take over the AI contracts for these agencies to replace all those people he fired. He wants billions of dollars in contracts for satellite programs. He wants DoD contracts. And, he announced last week that he's going to leave in May, right at the same time that he announced the merger between Twitter and X AI, which is his AI company in which he's planning to build out this massive AI system. So I don't know. To me, the entire thing, it looks like a a masterpiece of diversion to try to make it look like they're doing something to make the government work better. And I think he's going to basically leave destruction and waste in his wake and then go cash out and make billions of dollars. And he will have downloaded the most valuable data sets on the face of the planet, and he'll make billions of dollars off of it.
It's beyond, it eclipses what we saw in the Gilded Age. Like, this is not even in
Mm-hmm.
that time of the Rockefellers having an inordinate amount of impact, and the Vanderbilts and the railroad magnates and tycoons. This and that those days they did own judges too. Like, I was just reading a whole book about 1880s,
Mm-hmm.
1990s. They did, but I don't think any of them spent $20 million going to the state. It probably was a little cheaper. This is in our face, so it harkens back to an older time. Last thing I wanted to touch on, yesterday was Transgender Day of Visibility, and I saw in New Mexico you were marking that by amplifying transgender people from your state. What can you share about that, and what are their concerns? Because I can only imagine, because they know the GOP is coming for them. They're right in the crosshairs as a community.
Yeah, I think that for so many people in the trans community, this is one of the most frightening times
Hmm.
to have ever lived in, not just because there's direct attacks happening daily on people, but because this is a administration that is using trans people politically to uh, carry out its agenda, and has passed all of these administrative orders basically banning trans people from serving in the military, trying to strip them of their of their rights to serve. They're, going after them here in the halls of Congress every day. And in places like New Mexico, people, even where we have put into place state laws that protect trans people. People are living in fear that they're going to be attacked, that they're going to lose their rights to their personhood. People who have had name or gender changes on their IDs, now their IDs that they use for flying and passports and all of that is being invalidated, security clearance. It is really a systemic attack on the personhood of trans individuals. And so I think it's more important than ever that we stand up for the rights of our trans and LGBTQ plus community. And I think it's really important that across the country, similar to abortion rights, like we're going to have to protect trans rights at the state level. And when we come back into the majority, make sure that we protect the personhood and rights of our LGBT community.
Yeah, and targeting a vulnerable community is such a trait of authoritarian and fascist movements through history. You could just pick whatever movement you will find. They'll always find some community. And this time it's transgender. Tomorrow it could be any other group that they find. That's why we have to stand united. It doesn't matter what community you're in, because they're going to come for you. And it's either we speak up now together or little by little they pick us away and then there's no one left for us. So, well, Representative Stansbury, thank you so much for making time, especially just running off the floor of the House with the voting. I look forward to chatting with you in the future.
Great to see you. Have a good
great day. You too.